Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go through the top 5 baits to help you catch fish on northern natural lakes. When we're talking about a northern natural lake, we're talking about a glacier-made lake in the northern half of the United States. A lot of grass, a lot of flats, a lot of weed edges, and there's certain baits that I believe work really great for these situations regardless of season, temperature, things like that. So let's dive into it. Here we got a random lake in northern Indiana, Lake Manitou. And the first thing I'm going to do when I'm going to go to a different lake that I've never been to before, never set foot on, is look at Google Maps and just get a feel for what the lake is like. Number one, it looks like we got a lot of docks, some cut-in areas, maybe some pads, marshy areas down here. We got a couple islands. Looks like we got a lot of boats, a lot of traffic. But then when I zoom in, I'm seeing grass lines and shallow areas, right? So I'm thinking, water clarity might not be the best. Probably a lot of largemouth, gonna be a lot of shallow fishing. Then we're gonna go to chart viewer and we're gonna check out the island. Like we confirmed here, a lot of big flats, but there's some nice deep holes in the lake, right? So you wanna be able to fish these transition areas and lines, and we gotta have baits tied on to do just that. So the number one bait that I'm gonna pick up when I go to a northern natural lake is the spinnerbait. 3/8 ounce, number 4 willow leaf, probably a double willow leaf silver, white, or any kind of bait fish color. And I love the spinnerbait covering flats because it is one of the most versatile baits you can do it. You get to a hump or an edge, you can pause it, it'll fall down that edge. You got to burn it to get it over underwater vegetation, you can burn it. The spinnerbait is a super versatile bait, and you can cover immense amounts of water with the spinnerbait. Plus, if there's a little stain in the water, it's still going to bring those fish in with the flash and vibration and thump. If there is clarity in the water, you can put a smaller blade on that and you can burn it faster. Those fish will come up and smoke it, right? It's just a bait that I have a ton of confidence in to cover water. I know it's going to generate bites. It's going to do what I want it to do in this situation. So in a situation where you have a bunch of big flats with some drop-offs mixed in, a spinnerbait is a great way to generate bites regardless of water clarity, regardless of water temperature. If the water is colder, you slow roll that spinnerbait. If the water is warmer, you burn that spinnerbait. If there's active bait fish pods, spinnerbaits are great around that too. So it is a very versatile bait, which is going to allow you to fish the water column effectively. You can fish a spinnerbait in 25 feet of water, and you can fish a spinnerbait in 1 foot of water. You just have to time what you're doing correctly with the bite window.
It's number 3 on the spinnerbait. They're chasing it out of the weeds. Fat little fish. They're hitting that spinnerbait, big blades on a windy day.
The second bait I'm gonna have tied on is the Dropshot. Most of the time when I'm throwing a Dropshot, I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce to 1/8 ounce weight with a owner mosquito hook or a VMC approved wacky hook. I'm throwing 9 times out of 10 the Zoom Finesse trick worm in green pumpkin with the chartreuse tail, or the other options when the water is colder, you get the Maxent flat nose minnow, or you get the flatworm, or you can throw just basically any worm that you want to, right? Here's the Missile Baits Bomb Shot, another fantastic option when the water's warm, but the Drop Shot is great around drops and weed edges. And you see here it comes through everything. I really enjoy the Drop Shot because it comes through grass cover so much. Grass lines are vitally important on northern natural lakes, but a lot of times your bait can get lost down there in the bottom on that. This keeps the weight above the weeds and allows you to really present something that is in the fish's face. The drop shot is also a bite generator. It's going to catch a lot of fish irregardless of where you go. A lot of guys who fish professional tournaments are going to throw drop shots to generate bites. I've seen a lot of guys who fish in the back of the boat in, pro-ams, events, things like that, where they're co-anglers throwing a drop shot behind people and cleaning up. The Dropshot is just a bait that generates bites. You can't really go wrong on it. You can throw a ton of different stuff on it. You can throw worms, you can throw shad-shaped worms, you can throw swim baits, you can throw everything on a Dropshot. You can throw creature baits. It's just a thing that generates bites. So first, what I'm going to do on that natural lake is I'm going to cover water with the spinnerbait. Then once I start catching some fish and they stop biting in that area, I'm going to throw the Dropshot in there to see if I can get any other bites to have it. All right, guys, the third bait we're going to start throwing on northern natural lakes is the Wacky Worm. You can either throw a Singo, a Yum Dinger, whatever kind of stick worm that you want to throw. Caden and Rob rely on this bait heavily when they are fishing tournaments, and throwing a Wacky Worm is literally what I'm going to do when I move to any kind of shallow cover. Docks, slop, tubes, rock jetties. The Wacky Worm is going to generate and get bites in dirty water, in clear water. Literally, we have hundreds of examples of monster fish caught on the Wacky Worm on different bodies of water that are northern natural lakes. For whatever reason, that seductive fall on this bait is going to generate a ton of bites, and you can see it here in crystal clear water. It looks really dang good, right? Color wise, we like the number 14 Tony Stewart smoke worm from the Cinco. I like June bug. I like green pumpkin. Just whatever, watermelon, whatever color you feel comfortable with is really not a bad option on a northern natural lake. And this is one of those things that, like the Dropshot, this is going to generate a lot of bites. You can fish it in 1 foot of water. You can fish it in 30 feet of water, right? It takes a little bit of patience fishing it on the deep weed edges, but I've seen Caden and Rob and myself pull a lot of big fish out of the lake on a Wacky rig. The Wacky rig is just one of those things where it's going to generate bites. Northern natural lakes are infamous for being a tough bite sometimes because they are pressured and because they're smaller bodies of water, but the Wacky Worm can help you generate a lot of bites. All right, guys, next up we have the Rapola DT8 and DT6. I have a lot of faith in the DT8 and the DT6 because, one, I'm looking for a specific zone when I'm system cranking over the top of weed edges. Most of my 14 and 15 foot depths come with 5 to 6 feet of weeds, so the DT8 and the DT6 are perfectly built to go over top of those weed beds and call fish up, right? Plus, any kind of structure where you're fishing is going to hold bass. DT6, DT8 are very good at coming through that structure, hitting it, bouncing it off, and causing a reaction strike. I'm also a big believer in silent crankbaits. For whatever reason, when you fish a pressured lake, I tend to do a lot better cranking with a silent bait. The DT8 and DT6 are balsa crankbaits. They are killers, right? From cold water period all the way up through the post-spawn, all the way into the summertime when you can get out those DT10s and DT14s, DT16s, and really get on some of those fish that are on the deeper structure points. I believe a silent crankbait gives me an advantage on a pressured lake. A lot of guys throw crankbaits with knockers in them. I believe the fish become accustomed to that, right? I have a ton of faith in the DT series because it's depth control all the way for me. Depth control is really the most important when you're cranking northern natural lakes, or else you're going to bury your crankbaits in the grass most of the time.
Let's go! Middle of the winter time, DT8, nice smallmouth. Let's go!
All right, guys, the last bait here is the jerkbait. I really enjoy throwing a 3 to 5 inch jerkbait. The Vision 110 is a great example. Here's the Rapala X-Rap. The jerkbait is another bait that's going to get the call when you're fishing wide, expansive flats that drop off into weed edges. Also, depth control is very important on a jerkbait here because you're fishing over top of grass. Scattered grass like this is built for ambush. The jerkbait drives that feed response from bass and makes them really come out and come unglued. If you can jerk over top of these grass clumps and edges, you're going to catch a lot of fish. Caden has hundreds of hours on the jerkbait this year, and he has hundreds of fish catches to benefit from that. The jerkbait is just gonna generate bites when nothing else will, and it fishes fantastically above grass, through grass, however you want to do it. Now, we're talking about a lake that we've never been to, hitting it and trying to catch bass to generate patterns. We're not talking about getting really dialed in and flipping all day, or pitching all day, or throwing a frog all day. While those things can work, we're talking about I'm hitting a new lake, I've got 2 hours to try to catch some fish. What baits are going to work for me? The jerkbait is one of those baits you can pick up at any body of water and throw, and it's going to generate a lot of bites for you doing that. Well guys, that concludes our top 5 baits for natural lakes. 1 being the spinnerbait, 2 the Dropshot, 3 the Wacky Worm, 4 the DT6 or DT8, and 5 being the jerkbait. Remember, the channel's growing. If you want to see us do specific videos over specific things, please give us a like and subscribe. Leave us a comment on those things that you want to see us do. If it's underwater videos, if it's tournament videos, whatever it is that you guys want to see, we want to help you. We want the channel to be relevant. If you guys want baits tested underwater, comment what baits those are so we can get you some underwater footage on those. If you guys have any lure makers you want to reach out to so that we can get some of their lures and do some underwater video, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a comment, and we'll see you out there, guys.